Welcome to another episode of Tales from the Tables with your host, Rob Bradley,
John Charles Ceccarelli,
and Damien Hallwood.
What? Wait a second.
What?
Huh? Damien Hallwood? Hey?
Damien who?
Hallwood.
Again?
We've been hacked.
We're in a new timeline, people. We're in a new timeline.
Oh no! Do you know what? Don't say that to me, because have you guys heard of the I can't remember what it's called, but basically,
in the new timeline, your memory is worse.
Yeah. In the new timeline, you forget stuff. So basically, do you remember? Right now, let me ask you this question, okay? Because this is going to be really interesting. In the movie Moonraker, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Why does Jaws and Dolly? Why do they connect? What happens between Jaws and Dolly makes them connect?
You're talking about some Mandela effect thing.
Yeah, that's it. Mandela effect. That's it. The Mandela effect. That's it. So let me just remind you of the scene. So Jaws crashes into the he's on the gondola. He crashes into the station.
Right. That's exactly.
And Dolly turns up, the girl with the pigtails. Yep.
Yeah, and she rescues him.
She rescues him. She helps him move over the thing. And as they look at each other, she does something. What does she do?
She smiles or looks at him?
She smiles.
No, he smiles because you see his teeth.
Yeah, he smiles.
I don't remember what she does.
She then smiles.
Okay.
Why doesn't he kill her?
She's got something with her teeth? I don't remember.
Like what?
What could it be? Damien, do you remember this?
I don't presume. Is it something like?
I'm a terrible Bond fan. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The annoying thing is, if you remembered that it was braces, right?
Oh
yeah. She's wearing braces. She smiles and she's wearing braces.
Right.
Well, guess what? When you watch it, she just smiles and she doesn't wear any braces.
Yeah, see, that's what I remember. I don't remember her wearing any braces. I think it was just a cute romantic bit.
I remember
the braces.
I remember her wearing fucking braces, man. I was like, yeah,
Rob, this is not the right time.
No.
What do you remember when you walked out that door you shouldn't have at Rolldark Fest in Basketball Hall?
Not again.
That was the wrong door.
What year is this? What year is this? It's 2023. Well, but everything's changed. Everything's changed. I feel like Marty in episode 2 of Back to the Future.
Yeah, exactly. You remember your cup was the skyline, like the one you're drinking your coffee from right now. Actually, the handle was on the other side in your original time.
Oh my god!
It's actually a cool cup.
Oh my god! Shit.
Yeah. No, so I do remember them smiling at each other. I remember that scene because he crashes down and then she comes over and pulls him out. But I don't remember braces. I really don't.
Okay.
But I guess.
If
I'm sure there's a Reddit forum full of people being like, "No, she had braces."
There is. I've gone down a massive YouTube rabbit hole with the Mandela effect. For those of you who listen who don't know what the Mandela effect is, basically it's having a collective memory of something that occurred that actually didn't occur. So, for example, the reason it's called the Mandela effect is because Winnie Mandela walked next to the coffin of Nelson Mandela when he died, and that loads of people have this collective memory that she did that she stood next to his coffin and she's walking by next to his coffin. It was all televised, and that he died in prison, right?
Right. Yeah, that was the thing, that he died in prison.
And he didn't die in prison.
No, he was released.
He was released, and there's loads of people that remember seeing this video of Winnie Mandela walking next to his coffin, like next to the prison gates, and nope, never happened.
Mm-hmm. I thought you were going to go down the Shazam.
I was going to say the popular one is the Shazam one. Have you heard of this one, Rob?
No.
What's Damien, tell it. It's so good.
Go on.
Oh, I don't know the full details. I haven't gone down the rabbit hole like you clearly have, Rob. But
Shazam.
It's to do with a movie named Shazam and people's memory of
before the actual Shazam. Before the modern movies.
DC one.
This was back in the 90s.
Not. I should point out, not that Shazam. Right. A much older movie.
Okay.
You should check it out. It's
Shazam 90s movie. What is it? What is it? So is it just like there was a movie called Shazam in the 90s, but there wasn't?
So I think a lot of people remember this movie with Sinbad made, or it's either one way or the other, and I forget which one is the primary one. But people remember this movie called Shazam with Sinbad in 1994-ish, right, where he plays a genie. And people have a collective memory of this. Apparently, and again, I'm not 100% sure on the details. Wish I, could Google faster. But apparently, this movie never happened. What did happen, which people get confused with, is apparently a different 90s movie where I think it's Shaquille O'Neal, who plays a genie in a unrelated film called Kazam. Yes, that's exactly it. I just found it online.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A movie named Kazam was released in 96 starring Shaquille O'Neal as a genie. And many people that believe are confusing this movie with the only one they claimed starred Sinbad and was called Shazam. But many people apparently remember watching both movies and preferring Shazam, as Kazam was poorly written in comparison and was known at the time for being a Shazam ripoff, which is weird because Shazam never happened. This is that kind of collective weird thing. We live in the Matrix and the cat just walked past the door twice.
Up. Fucked up shit, man.
It's so cool. Yeah. That's the popular one. There's a few other good ones out there I remember reading. Yeah.
But anyway, we've gone a bit off topic because we need to welcome Damien to the podcast as our new co-host.
Hey!
Really excited to be back on the podcast, guys.
Yeah, it's good to have you on board as our new co-host while James tries to figure out how he can get out of his work and skive off to come back. But
that's right. Yeah, James is okay for those of you who are initially concerned. He's alive and everything.
Yeah, maybe we'll have him on as a guest.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's listening.
Yeah, he will. He will.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
He will. Listening while chewing a wasp.
Hi, team.
Really excited to be back on. It's been a while. I realized it was swelteringly hot the last time I was on the podcast.
Oh yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah,
it was episode 2, and it was real hot, and it is not anymore. So it's been a while. We're lucky this is an audio format because I do represent a significant visual downgrade from Mr. James Burrows, who
that goes for anybody, so don't
in
feel
person
bad.
is
I wouldn't say that, Damien.
Is as the legends say. He is as the legends say.
Damien, you're tall, you're slender,
you have all your hair.
You've got a lovely accent.
True.
You got all your hair, exactly. Yeah, you got all your hair.
Like all the rest of us on this podcast.
You're polite. Do you know what I mean? And you're you've got a bit of wisdom going on. So don't beat yourself up.
Well, I appreciate it.
James is just a he's just a
supermodel. Well, James is James. Let's leave it.
James
at
is
that.
just James.
Exactly.
I'm only doing it to teasing, so I know he's listening. Yeah, it's funny. So
welcome.
Welcome, man. Yeah, so Damien's gonna be taking over from James in terms of like the RPG news, and then obviously any other extra bits we want to sort of add in to the podcast as we go along as well, of course. So, yes,
juicy episode to take that responsibility on as well. Lots of fun bits.
Oh yeah. Should we get started on that?
Absolutely, we can start there if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
Great. So what I'm going to do, D&D really has taken a bit of a spotlight this last few weeks with some of the news from PAX Unplugged, a big convention, and they had a panel with lots of cool announcements and sneak peeks. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to very quickly run through a couple of other bits of RPG news outside of D&D that I think people might want to quickly hear. First one, if anybody uses Roll20 as your VTT of choice, they are making some...
face vomit somewhere in Reddit.
Yes, other VTTs are available. They have just recently done an announcement announcing Jumpgate, which is their modern overhaul of Roll20. So it looks like they're doing a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff to make it a lot faster, a lot less of a resource hog, and brought into the modern era in terms of working a lot better with browsers. They're going to go into their beta for pro members in Q1 next year.
Oh wow! Okay, cool.
Yeah, because it was starting to show its age. That old
absolutely.
UI.
If you want to read about it, it's on their blog. They've got a whole post about some of the things that they're aiming to do with it on the more technical side of things. But basically, the over and under is that they're trying to make it faster and better and more modern. Some people may have noticed they've already changed some of the icons on the screen. Those have changed to new, I guess, what they call modern icons. So there's a lot of background work going on to try and make that a bit more user friendly.
Do you use Roll20, Damien?
I do primarily, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Do you use it for comms as well? Do you have like the the videos of the people on the screen and
Not
stuff?
currently, no, not
No.
currently. I don't.
Okay.
But
Because I've always heard
perhaps,
that's a bit jittery. Where it was
yeah,
when I was doing it years ago.
perhaps
Yeah.
with this update that will be a little better. If it's going to be taking less resources to run the entire thing, then perhaps it will allow a bit of a smoother experience as a all-in-one package.
What's Fantasy Grounds like in comparison to Roll20? Is it fairly similar?
I haven't.
Similar?
I have not used it.
I have a little bit. I find that Roll20 is actually more similar to Foundry VTT than Fantasy Grounds. Fantasy Grounds actually has more of a unique looking UI. Their chat pane, for instance, is not on the right hand side and stuff, or at least it wasn't when I played it, when I tried it briefly. Which is, it was fine. It was well enough. And in the VTT wars, as I suppose they should be called, I'm really interested about this jump gate thing. I wonder if we'll see, and I doubt it, but I wonder if we'll see a lot of people reconvert to Roll20 as a result of this, because I think the massive benefit, and we've talked about this before, but the massive benefit that they have is that they license their material directly from Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
So you can, and other systems as well. So you can, with the power and the money of Roll20 that they have, you can buy and download their pre-made, pre-walled, pre-lit modules if you're a pro member, and basically plug in and play. Whereas Foundry, you don't really get that unless you know where to look. But you don't really get that right off the bat. You kind of have to do a little bit of the legwork yourself. But that being said, I still think, because of the structure of Foundry, not the benefits, not the user end features, but the structure of how it's envisioned, where people can make modules for Foundry VTT. It's not owned by, well, it is owned by a person, but you can install basically anything, and it's all labors of love from the community that can up or down your experience, or complicate it or simplify it however you want. And Roll20 won't ever have that. They're in-house. They have an awesome in-house team, and they get a lot of money, I'm sure. But I don't know. I'm curious to see where this will
That's
bring
the
people.
ideal, I think, isn't it? Is
Yeah.
They've taken on the feedback, and you would hope that at the back of this, it would make people want to use the system. It would make people want to either return to it or make that their preferred choice.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Time will tell. If you have the pro subscription, then you will be able to access the beta of that early next year. Maps is D&D Beyond's. From what I can see, I haven't looked too hard into it, but it looks like their standard VTT equivalent, and looks to be different to the fully all bells and whistles 3D rendered version that they're also working on.
It looks relatively basic. Oh god, it reminds me of a different VTT that was not exactly popular, but it was announced a couple of years ago, and it was meant to be very, very basic and very accessible. Like literally an image, your tokens, and you can drag them across a sheet. I don't even think it had sheet support, but obviously with D&D Beyond you do. So there's integrated rolling and sheet support. But it doesn't. I don't know that you can set up things like dynamic lighting and walls and all these bells and whistles. But it's still. I mean, for what it's worth, probably astronomically, people are using D&D Beyond for online play, right? I even have players that I run a campaign on Foundry VTT through that use D&D Beyond for their sheets and their rolling, and they just roll into the interface.
Exactly the same for me on Roll20. Most of my players use D&D Beyond
integrated,
rolling character sheet, the whole lot.
It's just so easy to use. That's the thing, isn't it? It's so simplistic.
Exactly. And since everyone's already on it and already paying for it and already using it, I wouldn't be surprised to see a whole bunch of people kind of simplify the VTT experience and just run over to D&D Beyond maps at that point. Yeah. Especially since that's being delivered hand fresh by Wizards. You don't have to go through the extra steps of finding it online and downloading it and buying it from Mike Schley or whatever it is and then uploading it, etc. So yeah, it's interesting. We'll see.
All right. We'll see how that goes. Moving swiftly on, I've got 3, maybe 4 little kind of releases, bits of information about releases. One is talking about going back in time. It looks like Shadowrun, Catalyst, are reprinting and reissuing the first edition of Shadowrun from 1988. So if you're a fan of
Whoa.
that original version, I think they're on 6th edition now, since 2019. But if you're a fan of the classic first edition Shadowrun, they're reprinting that for people to get hold of. So that's a cool little a little thing for anybody that's a fan of that.
Well.
old
I
system.
know nothing about Shadowrun. Have either of you guys played it?
I've dabbled.
Dabbled?
I haven't. No, I know. Chris likes it.
What's the elevator
DMs.
pitch for Shadowrun? Like what's it?
It's
set
D
in?
and D via cyberpunk.
Oh, okay. Does it actually run Cyberpunk Red?
No, it's
its own
entirely
thing, right?
its own
Its own thing.
Yeah.
system.
Its own like
Yeah,
world.
it's got video games and the whole 9 yards. It's
Is it as adult sort of themed as the cyberpunk?
Being a fantasy setting, I think it probably can float the line as D&D often does.
Yeah.
I don't think it has. Correct me, I'm not an expert by any means, but I don't think it is necessarily as overtly adult as Cyberpunk is.
That can be brutal, like really bloody graphic.
Really?
Yeah, like to the point of like just like, oh god, like this is unnecessary.
Have another character ready at all times, kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah,
I have a couple of friends who are constantly talking about Shadowrun and running it. So
that's the thing. When you know the person who likes Shadowrun, they're always talking about Shadowrun.
Yeah.
But I've never tried
it does sound cool. The idea of this kind of postmodern cyberpunk world, but with dragons and orcs and dwarves and magic.
Sick.
It's
weird. That's like super cool.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm getting
kind of like Eberron, but
even more modern. It is fully guns and lasers and arm attachments and bio upgrades, but with all the classic tropes of fantasy Dungeons and Dragons.
I'm getting a weird sort of arcane kind of vibe from it. Is that appropriate? Would I, if I wanted to run an arcane inspired campaign,
I'm sure you probably could.
Shadowrun?
Is it 5e?
I believe it's entirely its own system.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's on its own 6th edition, so I don't believe it is. I'm sure there are people out there who've got
6-sided dice system based on skill rather than class based. But archetypes are presented in the main book to give players and game masters an idea of what is possible with the system. That sounds really cool, honestly.
Yeah. It sounds like a fun alternative to D&D, but still not straying too far from Dungeons and Dragons.
Do you guys find that a fantasy setting can sometimes, I suppose in a way, because I don't know about you, Damien, but I know obviously JC is a huge fan of high fantasy and sort of Lord of the Rings, that type of thing.
No.
Yeah, right. But like, do you find you're a bit constrained into the stories that you can tell with fantasy?
It can be. I think that's probably why, because I talk about this a lot with people. Like, people will sometimes, it's less common now, refer to Dungeons and Dragons as like medieval fantasy.
Yeah,
but it is not if you play it. Certainly, Forgotten Realms.
It's magic.
You've got tall ships and you've got a lot of gnomes with almost steampunk technology and gunpowder weaponry and all these kind of things that make it its own setting. You can absolutely play it, and I've intended at some point to play it medieval fantasy, like go real base sword and sorcery. But I think that's part of the reason it's so fluid. And with settings like Eberron, it allows people to kind of flirt with science fiction without committing to an actual science fiction role-playing game, like something like Cyberpunk, which can be quite intimidating because it is so dense and
that's always been the thing that put me off with Cyberpunk is that it can be overly technical. It's like as much as I love Star Trek, and I've played Star Trek Adventures and I've run it and I do enjoy it, there's definitely players I've played with who want it to go to the realms of like techno babble, really in depth stuff, and there's other players who just want to like be beamed up by Scotty.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's
the
like
beer and pretzel version of a Star Trek Generations player.
Getting that balance between those sorts of players is really difficult because you've got ones that are like really want to be tactical, and the other ones are just like, nah, I'll just take it and leave it.
Well, I feel like that goes and holds true for anything. I think, and this is kind of my parting line all the time. Everyone plays differently. Everyone is looking for something different in a gaming experience. Even in a typical game of D&D where, say for instance, I'm running Curse of Strahd and everyone knows it's a vampire adventure, and if I have 6 players playing Curse of Strahd, 6 players will have their own 6 different ways of wanting to play. There's the guy who wants to play it as a very mysterious gothic urban kind of murder mystery. Then there's the person who is the beer and pretzels player who's like, oh, let's go stake some vampires. And then there's the person who's like is from Eberron and ended up in Ravenloft and wants to experiment with wolf pelts and wood to make an arm cannon. And then
is that actually someone that you got?
Yes, or did at some point when I was running it in a different campaign. Yeah, I had someone who wanted to artifice their own sort of stuff, and they were mostly using wolf product and wolf stuff because it was the most natural resource they were coming across in Barovia was they were constantly getting attacked by wolves.
Well, spoilers a little bit ahead for the stories coming up, but I think that's also why Wizards are leaning so heavily on this multiverse idea, which is kind of happening cross-media at this point, Marvel doing it and what have you. But
the multiverse is in.
It allows you, and Barovia is a great example of kind of how you get there, it being this other place. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to sit in one setting. It can kind of float between them. Allows people to do, you can have your almost Wild West steampunk gunslinger standing next to your sword and sorcery paladin, who is the righteous knight in shining armor, and it be okay. So I think D&D's very good at not constraining itself, and I think they take great pains not to.
Well, speaking of which, directly, Rob, I mean, allow me to plug Rolldark for you. Don't we have a steampunk Strahd campaign starting soon?
I saw that.
Yeah. Jacob's doing it. Sold out.
Nice.
Yeah,
starting Tuesday, 2nd January.
Oh, and January. Yeah.
All right, never mind. I'm not plugging it. It's sold out. Everyone go get involved.
Yeah, it's sold out. Jan's on it, by the way. I believe.
Oh, cool. Hi, Jan.
He jumped straight onto it. Yeah.
Awesome.
It is going to be that's going to be a really interesting.
This is actually really cool. Eberron comes to Barovia, lightning wreathed castles, rich, tense psychological horror, a unique blend of two iconic D&D settings, vampire secret police, literal dark satanic mills. That's awesome.
There's no
that sounds really good.
Idea.
There's no surprise that's sold out. Just that write-up alone.
Yeah.
It's just cool, isn't it? It's just cool. It's just. Do you think then the players are after things that are always, pushing the boundaries? That's why we kind of found ourselves, I suppose, in a way, from a cultural perspective, now fascinated with the multiverse because we feel like we've kind of explored every element of storytelling, and now we're sort of looking at other ways. Because obviously, there's those tropes, isn't it, of stories that you have. You go like the what's the story? The story structure where what's it called? Joseph Campbell?
Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey.
The Hero's Journey, yeah. So we're constantly looking for different alternatives to that almost.
I think with something like tabletop role-playing games, and we've hinted at it already, is you often have JC made a good point, but you've often got a diverse group of people, all with their own idea of how their setting and their world should be in their head, and to allow you to cater for that. A multiverse is kind of perfect in the same way that Spider-Man, I think, is so successful because the character of Spider-Man, at the heart of Spider-Man, if you get that right, it doesn't necessarily matter who's in the suit, which is why it allows you to have great characters like Miles and Spider-Gwen. And then,
excuse me, and Spider-Rex. Did you see the latest
Spider-Pig,
across the Spider-Verse?
And Spider-Noir and Spider-Punk and
literally
list.
So many. And tell me that movie wasn't incredible.
And so anybody,
I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
I
literally every opportunity I get to watch it, it's either really late at night, and if it's too late at night, I can't watch animation. I'm just like,
wait, are you talking about the first or the second one?
All of them,
or either of them. Okay, you need obviously start with the first because it leads.
They are both superb.
They're
really superb.
Okay, cool.
They're some of the best.
But I think that's
I need to free up a Saturday morning for myself and then.
Don't do it at night because if you're overwhelmed by cartoon, this animation is like so bombastic and colorful and changing that it will fry your eyeballs.
I tried at like 11 o'clock at night when like Charlotte had gone to bed. I was like, okay, cool, and I can get to watch what I want to watch. And I put it on. I was like, whoa! I was like, okay, I'm not sleeping tonight then. Great.
Yeah.
Just go to bed like this.
I think that's it. I think it is just allowing the space to be inclusive of everybody's version of D&D. So anybody can pick it up and play it, because that's what they want ultimately, is anybody and everybody to pick this game up and play it, because spoilers on a D&D podcast, it's great. It's a great game. It's accessible. So the only kind of, as long as you get in and you realize, I can super get these rolls, I see how this works. The only thing stopping you is it thematically what you want?
Right.
So it cannot restrict itself thematically, and I think they've done generally a pretty good job of blurring the lines.
They've done a
themes.
very good job marketing themselves too. Like that's the thing. 5e and D&D in general obviously is kind of like the quintessential TTRPG, and many people joke, it's the gateway drug into TTRPGs because you can discover other systems through D&D 5e. And I was listening to Matt Colville talk about the history. If you haven't watched, first of all, if you don't know who Matt Colville is, he's an incredible YouTube content creator. He's been in the gaming industry for many, many years. He mostly talks about D&D and helps out GMs running their games and stuff. Go check out his channel.
Definitely. I second that 100%. He's fantastic.
Secondly, I was watching one of his more recent videos, and I think one of his most popular videos to date, where I think the title of it is, "So, your D&D edition is changing." Yeah. And he's kind of just, getting real with people about what does this mean, and he comes through it from a historical perspective, where he watched throughout the entire history of D&D how people reacted to the edition changes and the edition wars and things like that. And you basically come out of it realizing you kind of run the game you want to run, right? Most people homebrew, even if they're running a very strict 5e game. And at the end of the day, there's so much richness that to pull from, and so much lore in history to pull from, that people end up kind of making their own unique thing no matter what, with these traditional elements into it. Although I've been discovering, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way, since I know both of you have run other systems before, like there are so many moments where D&D doesn't quite shine with something that the players want to do, right? Or how you want a scene to go. For instance, I just ran a skill challenge the other day, which is a legacy sort of mechanic from 4th edition. They don't really have it built into 5th edition, but a skill challenge is great for a more cinematic sort of feel, especially if it's a chase or an infiltration or heist of some kind. You cut from significant moment to significant moment and roll skill challenges based on a certain obstacle that might happen, right? So for instance, in this chase scene, my players are running down a crowded street and the people that are chasing them suddenly knock over a scaffolding to kind of slow their pursuit. Everyone needs to roll an acrobatics check to try and jump out of the way. But you can make an argument for using a different skill, like perhaps instead of acrobatics, you can use athletics to kind of just barrel through the fallen scaffolding and push forward. Or you can maybe roll a persuasion check to get a bystander to act as your meat shield and absorb the blow. And then you kind of just tally up the successes and failures based on your DC. That's kind of the down and dirty way I did it yesterday. And that kind of thing, D&D's not really built for it. You can get away with it, but I'm sure there are systems that do it better. And on top of other things like crafting, there's no innate crafting in 5e. There's probably other systems that do it better, like Cyberpunk. I wouldn't be surprised. So
yeah. We need to crack that crafting thing for the Rolldark marches.
Yeah. I have a lot of ideas for sure. So.
Okay, sweet. Because I've also been looking at me and Face have been trying to figure out a way to incorporate an economy into it. Because he was looking at there's like a mod that you can do in terms of you can control the prices in different merchants stores. Because basically with the Rolldark marches, like I would really love it to have like apples in one store would be, really cheap because apples happen to grow on pretty much all the trees in that local town, right? So there's an abundance of them. But if you go to like a mountain village or a mountain settlement,
shipping costs.
Exactly. Apples are like really expensive because there are no apples there. So it's like having to manage that system would be really good. I think,
and it feels like the community created thing, right? Everyone has a little bit of a say in the world that you're developing, down to the economics of it and the trade routes and stuff like that, which is awesome. It's a community built thing. And I know there are some of my players that will eat that up, right? They're dying to like get into the nitty gritty of the specifics. And then I know that there's a lot of my players that don't want to come anywhere near that with a 10-foot pole, because that's not what they're doing. They want a 4-hour dungeon crawl where they can shoot some Eldritch Blasts and feel really cool, not determining the price differentials for the mountain village between the apple village,
Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? It's like, because that's something we should really probably consider as well, because if we've got players that haven't played before and you've got one player that's like that and another player that was like what you just said, then is that going to ruin their experience?
I think that it will live, and Damien, feel free to jump in with your opinion too, but I think that this will live separately. So
Yeah.
when you sit down at a table with a group of people, or online, as we're probably going to do with Rolldark Marches, you'll be playing the game. You will be exploring and having combat and role playing. I think it's the in between moments that other people will be interested in, right? Like the hey, let's communicate offline in between sessions about this village and what god they worship and what they're selling and what is going on in this town, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, which should be really cool. It's like the whole idea of them owning property or getting a chance to buy land and to work
Right.
that land and have their own farm or become a blacksmith and sell their wares to like other players that they may never have met, for example. And they could just leave their shop open, like while they're offline. They come online and they've got it's like they come back online and they've got I've got 100 gold pieces. And it's like while you were offline you sold this sword, you sold this axe, you sold this.
Yeah.
It's like, oh wow, who to? And it's like, to this player over here. And there's another bit. It's like, oh my god, like that to me would just be like. Oh,
does that remind anybody
I want
of
to play
original WoW, like World of Warcraft days, where you'd put stuff in the auction house and then you'd come back to it a few days later and you're like, oh wow, I've got all this gold waiting for me in the mail.
I loved it. I absolutely loved that.
Yeah.
I used to be one of those suckers that went onto eBay and would buy gold.
Oh,
you can buy the gold.
Rob, no.
Yeah, I was one of those guys. I actually sold my paladin for 200 quid.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
I sold my World of Warcraft account for 200 quid. This is before any of the expansions came out.
So this is like vanilla WoW.
Yes, right. when it first came out. I got my paladin to level 40 to get his free horse, to get his mount. Got his mount, and then got bored of it, realized I was just doing the same thing at every bloody thing. It was just literally doing the same thing everywhere I went. I was like, this is so boring. And I'm not much of a sociable person, so the raids and stuff and meeting like people, I'd just be like fuck off. I don't want to talk to you. I was like really like antisocial at that time, and I was just like, I was gonna sell it.
I can't picture you being antisocial. You're like the face of Rolldark now.
I know, it's weird, isn't it? Yeah, I went through a bit of a dark phase in my mid-20s.
World of Warcraft's getting you in there. It doesn't surprise me.
I was addicted to it for 6 months, I think, something like that.
Nice.
It was stupid.
Oh, that's it. I had 2 years, 2.5 years.
2 years.
Yeah, I think so. Which is nothing compared to some people I know, But it was about. I played. So I wouldn't say I was addicted for the 2 years, 2.5 years that I played, or 3 years that I played. I was addicted for a period of about a year, and that was in college too. And I was like, there were times where I was just missing a class here and there because my guild was raiding that day, and I was playing on a European server, which was earlier in the day for me. So,
oh man, I would literally wake up at 8 o'clock, turn on my computer, start playing by about 8:30, and then I wouldn't finish until probably 3 o'clock in the morning. I would literally just go all out. And I was like, the photographs of me from then, I just look like I'm dead. I look like I've been dug up.
You look.
It's got like eyes.
You look like
this.
the South Park characters from their Make Love Not Warcraft episode, where they just degenerate into blobs.
Like really weak wrists. So I'm just like hunched over my keyboard and mouse, just like living off Mountain Dew and Pringles.
Dear listeners, if you would like to take part in the World of Warcraft edition of Dungeons and Dragons, keep an eye out for Rolldark Marches. There's some really cool stuff happening with it.
With that cell,
basically, just off-sold like everything. So basically, we're trying to create this. I was addicted to it that really ruined my life. So I'd like to have your life ruined. Sign up now.
As you can probably tell, we're trying to do some different things with it, and I think downtime is a really small part of the core book. And it basically has a handful of guidelines to say, hey, if you have downtime between an adventure, it pretty much encourages you to monologue it. Not monologue it. That's not what I mean. Montage.
Montage.
And
into monologue.
Into a monologue. And just sort of summarize, hey, in a month of downtime, I built this, I bought this, I did that. Whereas it sounds like we've got an opportunity to... And I agree with JC about maybe making it a kind of out of play thing, primarily,
totally.
but allow people that want to get into that crunch, because that are those players, to get together and crunch and still have a meaningful effect on the world.
Totally.
And not get in the way of those people that want to jump from chandeliers and just swing swords. And
because they still can go off and do that.
That's exactly.
Well, I
the
mean,
cool bit about
that's
it.
I think the idea, and we have to remember that, and that's the idea of this whole thing. The idea is to build custom adventures that people can play, and where it's contributed to by the community. It's not only to have a political system and an economic system and your own manor home.
Yeah.
Those are the perks. Those are cool things that we add. But at the end of the day, we have to have people playing the game. Like they have to go on dungeon crawls and quests and intrigues and role play and stuff. So, which there will be. But we're all really excited for it. I know.
Yeah, it's going to be good fun. I'm looking forward to having a little llama farm. I might have my own little llama farm somewhere.
Oh, I see that. Actually, that I see. Maybe alpacas.
Alpacas, little alpacas, I'll call them like Gary, Steve,
Bob,
Beth, Jeff, Alan, and Kev.
No Callums.
Maybe a Callum. A Callum, yeah.
The thing is, the minute players get invested in that llama or alpaca farm with named creatures, then the minute the wargs come racing down the hill, they will want to jump into a game and immediately destroy all of those wargs. You are not getting our alpaca farm.
Exactly.
And see, like that's the amazing thing about what we do as a hobby, and some of us as a pseudo career, like that you can take a concept that simple and that silly just right off the top of your head, and now you've named the llamas, and now they're important, and now people will go to war for these llamas, and from there these are the seeds of a campaign. I already see this being an epic narrative, right? Like it can start with you defending the llama farm, and by the end of 2 years those llamas have like become regents, or you have become like the emperors of the llama domain and kingdom. And
they're protected. They're protected. Like saints for different factions of whatever morality or whatever.
Exactly, and you'll be recreating the Ride of the Rohirrim, but with alpacas and llamas instead.
Nice.
As they all just rush.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's how it just can just spiral into this amazing creative moment that that everyone can just enjoy.
It's a whole story right there.
Absolutely. Well, not to bury the lead on news for tabletop role-playing game. Speaking of a future and changes to the systems, we did have PAX Unplugged and a panel about a little bit of the history of D&D. Like each of the panelists, there was Amanda Hammond, James Wyatt, Chris Perkins, and Jeremy Crawford, all together talking about not only the past, because next year for Dungeons & Dragons, as we've said, is the 50th anniversary, and coincidentally enough, the Year of the Dragon.
Cool.
Oh, really?
That's right.
That's awesome.
Right. If there's one thing I could recommend you guys do, right? This is really cool. Okay. Buy yourself a gold coin from the British Mint that is a gold sovereign coin that is in the theme of the Chinese year. So if it's the Year of the Dragon, get yourself one of those, because they're going to be worth so much money.
I'll do that. I'll absolutely do that.
It's really worth doing. I think you can get a half.
Shut up and take my money. I'm ready.
Yeah. It's fucking cool. You get silver as well. Silver's a lot cheaper, obviously, than gold, so you can get that as well.
But get the gold sovereign coin.
The gold sovereign coin. Yeah, from the Royal Mint.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yep.
So the panel talked a little bit about the history of Dungeons and Dragons and the adventures and editions of the game that inspired the panelists. But I think the juicier bit that I think most people were tuning in for was the announcements of what's coming out going forward. And 2024 looks to be a fairly big year for D&D, especially in what is one D&D or whatever the next sort of evolution of Dungeons and Dragons is. I think it's quite clear now to point out that it doesn't in any way seem like it is going to be a brand new edition in the way that fourth was a new edition and fifth was a new edition. Right. And in fact, they very specifically referred to the core books as the revised Player's Handbook and the revised Dungeon Master's Guide. So I'm just going to quickly point out some of the things they announced at this panel. The first thing is, for all of you historians, is they are doing a sort of a making of book of the origin of Dungeons and Dragons.
That's cool.
Oh wow, that's
so
great.
1970 to 1976, the making of the original Dungeons and Dragons. I think it's a 500 plus page tome of information about the making of the game, and will include never before seen correspondences between the makers of the game, as well as artwork and sketches and things to show off the genesis of this game we all love 50 years on.
Fab.
So that's a really interesting book for anybody that has a deep passion in the history of this game. So that's coming. As for a more modern list of things that we're going to get, they talked about a sort of one-session adventure called Lost Caverns of, and Chris Perkins pronounced this as Sojkanth? Lost Caverns of Sojkanth, which apparently, from what I understand, is a remaster or remake of an older adventure. It's a one-session thing, and it's in the spirit of tournaments. It's based on a previous tournament adventure, and it will apparently even come with a tournament scorecard to pay homage to its past as a tournament game. But it's designed to be played as a short sort of single-session mini adventure.
Nice. The elusive one-shot.
That's it. Perhaps even more excitingly, given that this name I'm about to drop is very much in the cultural zeitgeist right now, Vecna.
Yeah, I wasn't actually giving you the bird. I was doing the V. I've done it this way.
Big V himself. We've seen a stat block for him a little while back. They released a stat block for him. I imagine that will get an update because he is getting his own adventure to coincide with the release of the revised books, and we'll come to dates in a moment.
Do you know anything about that adventure? Like
it's called Vecna Eve of Ruin.
Sweet.
And I believe, from what they've said, it is designed to go up to level 20, which is rare.
Man,
and
I'm gonna get that.
That's it.
I fucking love Vecna.
It is it's described as a multiverse hopping
cool
adventure with Vecna doing his level best to conquer the multiverse and do all the evil things he does.
Yeah,
it will culminate in a climax against Vecna himself.
Oh man,
the timing of this couldn't be more perfect. The cultural zeitgeist between the obsession with Marvel about the multiversal thing, Kang the Conqueror being a whole thing right now, even though that's kind of plagued with its own issues. But Kang the Conqueror, the obviously Stranger Things and the big focus on Vecna from the previous season, and we're getting a new season next year, I think, of Stranger Things, where we explore that, and it's going to be the final season. Like if this will not mint money for Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro, I would be massively surprised. Like they will be printing their own dollars.
From what I gather as well, from the timings, it seems like this will be sort of the first major release that will coincide with the release of the revised editions.
Right.
Okay.
So
the new rules.
Get you hooked in.
Do we have a release window?
Well, this is the interesting thing. All of these announcements I'm covering did come with release dates on the posts that they put out. However, they have since removed the dates from all of them and reposted them as just titles and pictures.
Great.
Ooh, you know that was a big board meeting. And
I will say that this adventure was slated for May of 24 when it had a date.
It's actually sooner than I thought it would be.
And that was alongside the revised Player's Handbook.
Right.
In May, but I should point out, take that with a grain of salt because they have since removed all these dates. So Vecna, Eve of Ruin, a multiversal epic campaign which will culminate in a battle against the Godlich himself, Vecna. Sounds really exciting. There isn't much more details than that, but it will apparently feature other characters from D&D history who maybe haven't seen the light of 5e yet.
Fantastic.
Interesting.
That's great.
I don't suppose you know this, Damien, because they probably are being tight-lipped about it. But wasn't there a rumor that this is supposed to be? This has something to do with the obelisks that we've been seeing.
It
Because a
seems
little bit of payoff on that after Shattered
yeah,
Obelisk would
it
be
seems
freaking wonderful.
it seems linked, doesn't it? It seems
Yeah, yeah.
coincidental. Perhaps.
Okay, cool.
I can't speak to it. They didn't bring it up, but it perhaps.
Mm.
Either way, it's if you've seen the new artwork of Vecna with this kind of gold
Yeah.
rib-like armor all over his body, it's kind
Mhm.
of an extension of that. He's starting to look more and more like Ultimate Skeletor at this point. He's
Sweet.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
he's looking
Yeah.
real cool. So keep your eyes peeled for that one.
We live in
there was-
interesting times, guys.
We
This is-
certainly
this
do.
is great.
I'm surprised that this goes. The players will be able to get up to level 20 because if you've got four level 20 characters, they'll definitely be able to beat the Vecna that currently has
Oh,
a sneak
Well,
peek out now.
well. Stay tuned. I'm not finished. I'm not
Oh.
finished.
Oh.
Stay tuned
Oh,
because I have news on that too. Just before we get to that, we're getting to that next. But there is one more book they've announced called Quests from the Infinite Staircase.
I saw that one too.
Yeah. So this is designed to be
That sounds cool.
another anthology book. Akin to Keys to the Golden Vault, where it can either be a linked series adventures due to the Infinite Staircase being a multiversal traveling ability, or you can play them as individual adventures. I believe again they're probably going to include revamped adventures of from years gone by. Again, introducing more characters from the lore and introducing a brand new character who I don't believe has been named yet. But if you see the artwork on the post, he looks almost like a genie. He has purple skin, long flowing white hair, and his mustache and eyebrows is literally like smoke billowing out.
Yeah,
of his
I'm
face.
looking at it right now. It looks
Wow.
gorgeous. He's got a gold cloak on, but it only is like a short sleeve, so it comes
Yeah.
up to the elbows. Very sort of Middle Eastern inspired. Very cool
Cool.
looking.
He's slated
Very
as a
cool.
brand new character to D&D lore.
Oh wow! Okay,
Who
sweet.
will be part of linking
so
these adventures together.
This is kind of what I'm realizing. This is kind of an update from Tales from the Infinite Staircase, which was a second edition AD&D adventure anthology, part of the Planescape campaign setting. So the fact that they're kind of reviving this and introducing a new character to it, and it could be so good. It could be so good. This is how they get me to buy the books every time. It could be so good.
JC, I think you're going to buckle at this next bit in terms of
Oh,
buying
God.
the books.
Oh no!
So
I'll sit down.
The final bit is, of course, talking about the new revised core books. They focused quite heavily on the player's handbook and stated, which is ubiquitous across all three core books, that is the biggest player's handbook they've ever released. I think Jeremy Crawford cited 48 subclasses in the player's handbook this time round. Another thing they were touting, and if you want to check out some of this, they've posted some of it, is the artwork. They are going big on artwork this edition. They said that every single class will have a splash page of artwork to introduce it. It shows the fighter, which is this awesome piece of artwork of a dwarf fighter warring his way through a multitude of soldiers, shield and sword in hand, axe at hip, bow on back. It's a great piece of artwork, and every class will get that splash page, and then every single subclass will also have a dedicated page and dedicated piece of artwork.
Wow, nice. Yeah, I remember their objectives were being kind of like, we need better artwork. We need not AI artwork. We need this.
This is beautiful stuff. Alongside that, they've shown some pages of the backgrounds, which all have their own artwork as well. So there's kind of a over and under artwork at the top, stats at the bottom, and for anyone that's been looking at the playtesting material, you now get your what were previously racial abilities, like increases to your attributes, are now linked to the background, not the species. So that's shown quite clearly here. But again, beautiful artwork. The intention being that they want you to really feel like you've come from either the place in the artwork or a place similar to the artwork to inspire you with your background.
Sure.
They've also said, for you shoppers out there, I know there are plenty of D&D shoppers, the player's handbook will have artwork for every single weapon. So you can have your own personal shopping trip around the art in the book to buy your equipment, which sounds super fun.
That'll look lovely. Yeah. Very cool.
If that's not enough, a lot of these pages can be viewed on their posts about this, but if that's not enough, they also talked only about the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual. The Dungeon Master's Guide, again, the biggest they've released. They hinted that it includes a campaign setting, which I can only imagine is Forgotten Realms, like the baseline Forgotten Realms setting of Toriel and beyond. I can only imagine that's the setting they're referring to there, but they didn't specify. And apparently has been completely reorganized in order to be a lot more useful at the table. They've heard feedback that the Dungeon Master's Guide currently is just not sat at the table as a resource for many DMs to pick up and use for any reason.
Right, because it's a Reddit and done with it kind of
yeah.
Thing, right?
Apparently now it is intended to be much more of an actual resource that you pick up and use. Right. In it and in the player's handbook, they talk about new spells, new magic items, new equipment, new everything, along with, of course, more subclasses and classes, more species. They're both going to be big books. The one that really got me going was, of course, the Monster Manual. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a Monster Manual guy. That's the first book in any whatever version of the Monster Manual in your RPG system.
You want to crack
that
it
will
open
be the book I want to crack open and look at.
Yeah.
The Monster Manual. So we talked earlier about Vecna getting his head kicked in by a party of level 20 characters. Mm-hmm. One of the core tenets they've said with the Monster Manual is to make certainly higher level monsters more dangerous without changing their CR. So I believe almost the exact, I'm paraphrasing, but almost the exact phrasing again from Jeremy Crawford, I believe, was that these monsters will do significantly more damage.
Interesting.
But not change their CR. They also named dropped 2 brand new monsters, of which there will be many. There was what did they call it? Something like the Epic Blob, or it was basically a
putting oozes back on the map post level 10.
They said if you wanted a CR20 ooze, this is your guy.
Yes.
They also cited a Arch Hag.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, that got me. Okay.
Yeah, I told you. And they said that the book will include over 500 monsters.
Jeez. What do we have in the current MM? I wonder.
I don't know the number on it. But old and new, and they've endeavored to make the monsters both more appropriate to their CR level, and on top of that, more unique. So they want each monster to have abilities and things they can do at the table that are only going to happen when you run that monster. So that seems to be the design philosophy behind it, which really excites me, because I was hoping that all of the kind of incredible player resources that have come out over these years, which are consolidating
would be
into
matched
the revised
with
edition.
the DM resources.
Exactly.
Right? Where's the love for the DMs, guys?
That's it. Monsters,
the people that buy the books, honestly.
Monsters often need a bit of a tweak to face higher level players these days, and Rob quite clearly pointed out, isn't Vecna just going to get his head kicked in by level 20 characters? Apparently they're making high CR monsters, of which there will be many new ones, much more challenging and deadly at that level, which is exciting.
Cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Listen,
okay, great.
I'm here for it. Apparently, the current Monster Manual contains statistics for over 300. They don't specify exactly how many, but now the new one is going to have, you said, over 5?
Over 500, yeah.
Boom.
So big books, artwork everywhere, and they also, one key point is that they've also said this is designed to be completely integrated with 5e. So everything, if you have a 5e character using the books as you've got them now, it will be able to stand side by side by a character who was built using the revised book. Right. So really exciting stuff coming out of PAX there.
Yeah, very sick. Very cool.
Good stuff.
Excellent news.
Certainly was a lot of news. My goodness, we've gone into almost an hour here with the news. So that's good.
I mean, we had a bit of catching up to do as well, right?
I bet Damien had a load more as well to tell, didn't you, Damien?
There were a couple of stories which can certainly wait. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So I just wanted to mention, we had a series of live streams over November for to raise money for Movember. We had 4 live streams in total. One of them was run by Jack, one of our DMs, Jack Price. Another one was by Robin. Another one by Anna. And another one by somebody, who was it? James That's right.
Gosh, already forgotten. Out of sight, out of mind, huh?
As if I was just playing around. I didn't
Of
really
course.
forget you, James. But no, just to announce, and I'm sure of those of you who are in our Discord would realize this. We've raised over $5,000 for Movember,
Jeez.
which is
That's great.
pretty cool, pretty damn cool. Yeah. So big shout out to those guys all involved there. Luke Aslam, one of the players, he actually managed to raise over £1,000.
Jeez.
So
Wow. Wait, one
well
of the
done.
players? His
it's a
name is
big shout out to him.
Luke
Yeah.
Aslam.
Luke
Nice.
Aslam, yeah. But those of you who don't know, that in the actual live streams, based on how many donations you personally managed to achieve, would unlock certain like perks along the way. And one of them, I think it was if you can raise £700, was for myself to go and run a game for you and your friends. So I'm gonna have to travel to wherever the hell Luke lives to run a game for him and his friends. Just hope he's not in Scotland.
Luke, I get out of the British Isle, make Rob travel. Go run a game in Australia.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's pretty
Awesome.
cool.
Very,
Yeah,
very
pretty
cool. Congrats.
cool.
And
That's
I mean,
great.
we
Well
didn't
done,
talk
everyone.
about it, but we had Rolldark Fest, right?
Oh yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a couple of weeks ago now. God, blimey.
I know.
2 weekends
Time
ago? A
is
weekend
kind
ago.
of insane.
Was
A
it?
week-
Yes,
a
2
week
weekends
ago.
Yeah, a week ago.
A week and a half.
Yeah, it was great down in Hay on Wye and on the Welsh border. It was really cool at Baskerville Hall, which is where Arthur Conan Doyle wrote Hound of the Baskervilles, because he used to stay there with the Baskerville family, and they were like,
And it
"Please
was
don't,
very much
yeah.
misty and moorish.
Oh,
and there was
yeah.
fog rolling over the hills. It
Oh.
looked really cool.
God, yeah. You nearly killed yourself trying to get there. Nearly killed yourself trying to get home.
Trying to leave, yep.
It's
You
just
saw a
like-
strange spectral phosphorescent glowing thing out in the moon.
It was literally, yeah. The room that we stayed in was I think it was room 3, which I believe is one of the haunted rooms.
Oh,
And, yeah, but I was just out for the count. Like
Yeah,
as soon
we
as I got
were
in there, I was just like, bam,
Yeah.
done, Poof, straight to sleep.
yeah.
But
I stayed in a really interesting room because it was one of those many rooms, or like a kind of cheap accommodations, hostel sort of style. But I had a really interesting companion, just to talk to with D&D about. It was really, really cool.
Yeah. Did you guys stay up for like 3 hours or something?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
It was
we
like 2.5.
put the world to rights. Yeah, talking
Crikey.
D&D, talking pop culture. It was a big old catch-up session. It was great.
Yeah.
Well, do you know
Annihilation.
what? Well, one of the things I'd like to talk about in this podcast, actually, if we've got a bit of time, I know, Damien, you need to run off in about half an hour, I think, isn't it? Something like that?
Half an hour or so. That'll be still good. Yeah.
Was do you remember when we were talking at Rolldark Fest and we were discussing about set pieces? And I remember, I think it was JC, I think it was you that you brought up about the Wolfman film with Lucia del Toro.
Yeah.
And there's that scene when they attack the travelers camp, the gypsy camp.
So good.
Yeah.
Such a great
And
scene.
you basically so basically because I never considered this whenever I've like built campaigns and stuff, is that you could literally just go into pop culture, into movies and things, grab set pieces from those movies and just drop them into your
Make
campaigns.
it a D&D thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So from those from that conversation, is there any other sort of films that you've done that to, or yourself, Damien, where you can sort of imagine like really good set pieces that could be included, or you have done in the past?
That's interesting. One that immediately springs to mind, I think I've mentioned previously, my home campaign started as Tomb of Annihilation. And one of the random encounters that can happen in that adventure involves giant beasts, so giant apes, giant dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus Rex, and certainly King Kong, either the original or right up to Peter Jackson's kind of awe-inspiring version, with moments of dinosaur on Kong action.
Yeah.
Definitely inspired my descriptions of that sequence. These colossal animals just drifting through trees like it's tall grass, just breaking them apart as they move, and the players running between their legs as the broken branches and things are just falling on top of them, a leg landing next to them and tearing the earth as it moves again. Yeah, definitely use that as an inspiration.
Cool.
Yeah. I can think of another time I did this. Have you guys seen it's nowhere near as, respected in pop culture history as King Kong. But have you guys seen Cabin in the Woods? The Joss Whedon.
Yes, I have. When it's the so spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Where it's they're trying to basically get the blood of like the archetypes to feed the gods that are trapped under the earth. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's good
So
film.
It's
good premise. Good premise.
it's a good premise, and it's funky in the sense that for the most part of the film, it's your standard horror, kids in a cabin kind of messing around and things go bad sort of scenario. But the underlying premise is that yes, there's a whole society, like a modern company, literally underground beneath the cabin, running the monsters that are attacking the kids, and like taking bets in an office setting, and being like, oh, R&D is bet that it was going to be the werewolves, and marketing bet that it was going to be the zombie cultists, but hey, here we are, it's the backwater family, whatever, with the chainsaws. And the scene, the only scene really worth it, and and the whole reason people go and watch the movie, is when the couple of surviving teens get down into the facility and realize they're in an elevator bank, right? A room with a lot of different elevators, and there's a big red button in the control room, and she presses it, and she's like, let's get this party started. And all of the elevators open, and just a cavalcade of different monsters run out and tear apart the SWAT team, and then wreak havoc all across the facility. And I totally stole that for a D&D game I was in. My players were invading a prison, a high security prison. They had like a werewolf, a lich, a varying different CR kind of stuff. Bat monster. I think I had one of those. Oh my god, the cool
like a monster prison.
Like a monster prison.
That's a great idea.
I've never
thought of using that.
One of the
cool
what's like the
prison for
ultimate
monsters.
Modron called? Not Primus, like not the god itself, but like the Marit, the thing that like just deals damage, doesn't even have to roll to attack. I had one of those behind it, just like a monster prison behind these force energy fields, and then 2 levers. And with unless you pull both levers at the same time, which opens the main door, if you pull one or the other, all the barriers go down.
Great.
And then everyone's just like, oh shit, and shit hits the fan. The monsters start fighting each other. They fight the guards. They fight the players. The players are trying to escape. They realize they're in over there. They're like, oh my god, run! And so I totally stole it from that. It was so much fun.
That's brilliant. I'm definitely
do it. Do a monster prison break.
Breaking that down.
And watch the scene. It's very gory. It's
if not the movie, watch the scene. It's full of Easter eggs too. There's kind of an equivalent of the Cenobites from Hellraiser. An equivalent of Pennywise the Clown, and their own versions on all the classic monsters. And it's fun just
even
looking...
weird things too. There's like a unicorn that escapes and starts running a guy, a security guard with his horn into the wall.
Yeah, brilliant. It's a fun film. It's
exactly
got a really good twist to it. It's fun. It's
Chris
fun.
Hemsworth is in it. For less people forget.
Is he the jock on the motorbike?
Yeah, on the motorbike.
Tries to do the jump, and he hits the
force field. Yep,
that's right. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
It's okay. I think I can make it.
Yeah. He's gonna make it.
Yeah, it's really, really funny how they just like got all those stereotype characters and just were like, yeah, there you go. Well, they exist because that's what we need. We need to
They kind of
kill these stereotypes
into the stereotypes more and more as the film went on. Yeah,
to feed the gods under the earth.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever they were. Like I was imagining they'd be like Cthulhu or something, but
they were like Titans, right? Because at the very end, you see spoilers. You see a massive hand come out and slap the earth, and that's it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. It was funny.
I quite like doing things whereby, like I've done in the past, I've tried to like get films that you would not put into a D&D setting into a D&D setting. So I did have you guys ever seen There Will Be Blood?
Yes. Great movie.
So you know the set piece where the oil explodes. The oil,
upward, right?
Yeah, so that I've had that happen in a town where adventurers have just been walking through, and this has just suddenly happened.
And suddenly an oil
facility just like explodes, and like all the townspeople are all like burnt, and they got to go and sort it out. And they're like, "Oh, what's going on?" And then it turns out there's like a monster under the ground, or sort of shit going on, and then they've got to like get involved in the adventure, and they've got to save the people. And yeah, it's really cool. There's a kid that becomes deaf because he was right next to it when the explosion happened.
Nice.
Yeah, I've like proper gone into
it. Yep. Took
just
it from.
Copied the whole thing.
Wow. That's a good scene.
It's a great scene.
It was
really
that movie.
Intense.
Yeah, it is intense. And Daniel Day-Lewis is sublime in it.
Oh, God.
And
it's just incredible.
It was that movie versus No Country for Old Men. It was kind of a slugger between those two at the Oscars.
Yeah.
And both of those movies, if you haven't seen one or both, check them out. They're both incredible.
Yeah. I think there's no dialogue in No Country for Old Men for like the first 45 minutes or something.
Yeah. It's
like
a
no dialogue.
Yeah,
It's
really
but it's
beautiful opening too, because it
it's
communicates everything
fantastic.
without needing it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I need to watch that again actually because my partner Charlotte was like, "Oh, I went to the cinema. I see, I didn't like it." And I was like, "What the hell are you on about?" I was like, "It's like an amazing film." So I was like, "Right, I'm gonna force
I
you to watch it
rewatched
again."
the scene recently just as I was doom scrolling
Mm.
of Javier Bardem's character with the coin flip, and
Yeah.
he's like,
Oh yeah,
call to the gas station, and he's
that's
like, call it.
just so good.
And he-
What a great psychopath he
yeah,
plays as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
Like he's
He
just
plays
Incredibly
it so well.
tense.
yeah. Josh Brolin's brilliant in it as well.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
playing the cowboy when he turns up when he finds all the money and stuff. Oh,
Oh my
It's
he's
god,
kind
like
of
just
an
trying to hide it.
anti-movie as well. The plot, if you
Yeah.
follow the plot, it kind of avoids all of the cliches of that typical kind of movie. If you watch it
Yeah.
through to the end, I don't want to spoil it too much, but it is kind of an anti-movie. It does not
Mm.
go or play out the way that you think, or
That's
perhaps
cool.
even want it to do.
to do. Right,
Is it
right.
is it Coen? It's Coen Brothers,
It's
isn't
Coen
it?
Brothers, yeah.
Yeah. So what set piece could you get from that film that you could put into D&D?
I don't know about set piece, but I immediately thought of Javier Bardem's character, like because he plays equivalently a bounty hunter with skewed morals
and really bad
Yeah.
hair.
and really bad hair. And the idea of the idea of a character who is hunting your players,
Yeah.
but is terrifying enough to not just be a one and done, who can come back and use all of the tricks that they know as a hunter. Think Kraven the Hunter in Spider-Man, and a character who is hunting the players but has the resources to do it well and be a real threat. In the same way that goblins and kobolds with traps can be deadly for any level of play.
Yeah.
How could you do it effectively? Because if you've got someone who's hunting you, how could the players find out that they're being hunted? Because
I think
breadcrumbs would have to be dropped before they arrive.
And Rob, that's the big part of it. I think it's telegraphing and not resolving that makes the difference. So if you have a hunter show up and surprise the party, you could make it a cool scene, but it will almost inevitably lead to a combat encounter where, unless you have a great escape plan, the players will overwhelm and kill the character, and then it's a one and done. The best thing to do is drop them in ways that players can't hurt them, but sort of telegraph their presence. Most importantly, though, and I think this is the cruelest, but probably the most effective way to do it, is to have that bounty hunter either harm or kill NPCs that the players care about. Right? They go back to a town to find that the lovely farmhand that they saved has been tortured for information about your whereabouts, and the bounty hunter has like left a calling card or something along that line. It can, not exactly that, but something along those lines, and pick up mistakes that the players make, just little things that they don't do. Say they all rolled a stealth check because they wanted to stealth into this next area, but then someone saw something very awesome and briefly abandoned the whole stealth angle to go rush over to the gem and pick it up. Maybe they made a mistake there. They left a footprint where they shouldn't have, or they took something that the mayor now knows about. Whatever the case may be, these little instances will work in that hunter's favor. I've done something similar. I had you guys know what an orthon is from D&D lore? They're these like fiendish, I think they're devils technically. They're these like fiendish bounty hunters. They show up in Baldur's Gate 3, spoilers, very briefly. But basically they're these Han Solo-esque sort of trap using, grenade tossing, crossbow wielding, big horned demons that can hunt you and are excellent trackers and have great survival and stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
They're a lot of fun. If you want to make a character like that, or at least use that as an inspiration for a sort of like a hunter tracker.
Well, for the set piece, I've just thought along those lines, when you do finally start bringing them closer and closer to the players, there is a scene in that movie, one of the great set pieces, where our main character is being hunted by more than just that bounty hunter. There are other people who are trying to find them as well. And there's a great scene in a motel where both parties show up at the same time, but neither of them get too close to the protagonist, but they get close to each other and they tear each other up. And that would be if you could pull it off, would be a great way of showing what that villain is capable of without directly putting them in harm's way. Like seeing the aftermath of you thinking this is the enemy and finding out that actually they've just been wiped out by this other problem
like
that you've now got.
like a really cool red herring type situation.
I feel like there's a film or maybe a TV show that did that really well, like the two interested parties meeting each other and the protagonist like just narrowly getting away from them fighting each other. Maybe it was Umbrella Academy, or I don't remember exactly what it was, but I'm remembering a scene kind of at a motel too, where there's like a shootout and people, or maybe a hotel, and the two teams are fighting each other, and the protagonist like narrowly dodges all the bullets and escapes while they're.
It's a really, really interesting idea for like a bit of a conflict situation.
Yeah.
Or an encounter, I suppose.
And the players can orchestrate it too. Like they can pit those two teams against each other and feel satisfied that they're letting the competition take each other out. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is how we handle our two bounty hunters that are attacking us.
Our two problems.
Our two problems of just kill each other.
Yeah,
brilliant. Was it my friends? No, the enemy of my friend. The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah,
it's my friend.
That's that kind of thing. Exactly.
Yeah. Sick.
Very cool.
Yeah, really cool. Okay, great. I'm gonna have to watch that tonight. I think No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, it's been a while for me too.
Have you watched American Werewolf in London yet, JC?
No. I need to get on that shit.
Please do it. It's one of my favorite movies of all
time.
I
will. I haven't checked out. What is, I was about to say 16 Candles. No, what is it? The solo RPG that we talked about?
10 Candles.
10 Candles, right?
Yeah, 10 Candles.
That would have been a very different
game.
RPG.
I ran that at Halloween.
Yeah, I gotta play that.
Highly recommend.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. Nice one. Well, Damien, I guess really what we'd like to really sort of talk about next is your closing of your Avernus game that went on for how long?
It was around a year-ish.
Nice.
With
that feels like a solid, good amount of time.
Who are your players?
So, if they don't mind me saying, we have Stuart, we have Jan, we have Steve, we have Dan, we have Meg, and we have Alex. Shout out to those players who I am blessed to be able to say I'm still playing with post Avernus.
Yeah, nice.
We've started a new campaign just yesterday.
How'd that go, by the way?
It was great. It was super fun. Really, really great.
What's the campaign?
So we pretty much unanimously agreed on starting Odyssey of the Dragon Lords.
Oh, right.
Which is a third-party adventure with Greek myth as its kind of core inspiration.
Yeah, it looks sick.
It is. But Avernus went for about a year, and we had a lot of fun with it. Yeah, it was really, really great. Really, really great.
I think what you were presented by, was it Stuart that gave you the?
Yes. So one of our players, and no pressure on party scribes, I'll put that up front just now. But Stuart was kind of the party scribe and would always sort of send, within a few days of finishing the session, a journal entry in character talking about the events of what had happened that session. And incredibly, I got to play in person with Stuart at Rolldark Fest, and I was presented, as were the other players too, a published paperback version of those. I think it was 40 sessions in a several hundred-page book, along with a little bit of artwork thrown in there, and a foreword by Stuart. And it was. What a great way to remember that campaign.
Oh yeah. He's a beautiful writer as well. His writing's lovely. Like I've read a few bits of it. It's he's great. What a lovely gift.
It is. It really is. It's a brilliant. Anybody that is a party scribe and is looking for gift ideas, that's a great one. Really touching. Right. But again, don't feel pressured out there. Don't feel pressured, please.
Feel the pressure.
Exactly.
Feel the pressure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. And no one died in the characters. No character deaths. Or did you manage to survive through the whole campaign?
No. They were all very experienced players and used their abilities often to make a mockery of otherwise quite dangerous enemies. Really? The closest I think we got was they were going up against a devil that was particularly high level in comparison to them, and many of them knew it out of character, but in character the group was resolved to keep fighting. And at one point this devil outright told them, if you keep going, if you keep pushing me, because he's swatting them down, and he said, if you keep pushing me, I'm going to erase the mind of one of you. at random. I'm just going to pick one of you and I'm going to take your mind away from you.
Wow.
And they kept pushing, and so he feeble-minded one of the characters.
Oh, God.
And it got to the point, and being a devil, he had no intention of TPKing them, because what good is that?
Yeah.
Instead, he bargained a soul out of not killing them all.
Wow.
Or at least not feeble-minding every single one of them.
One of their souls, or someone that they
one of their souls.
Oh, Christ!
One of the players eventually buckled and got up into their face and said, "You can have mine. Stop. Please stop. You can have mine."
Nice.
To the chagrin of many of the other players, because they were like, "No, please don't do this." But in character, she said, "Yeah, you can have mine." And with that, he was like, "Okay," contract summoned in the air, sign here, and off he flew. He was like, "I'm done. Wow. Great, fab. Thank you for that."
Got a soul. Bagged a soul. Sweet. What do they do with the souls?
Well,
do we have another podcast for that?
Absolutely.
Really?
I mean, it's basically the real quick version is Devil's hierarchy is based on the souls they're able to collect. So the more valuable souls they can collect, the more powerful they can become, and literally change from lower level devils into mid level devils into high level devils.
They literally transform.
They literally are transformed into higher powered devils based on the quality and quantity of the souls they're able to trick into deals.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's the short version.
The really short version.
And how do they? So the soul. So once your soul is now with the devil, what happens? Are you just like hanging out with the devil? Are you being made to do work?
No, it was
basically
9 to 5 corporate job in some place like Stroud, or like
it can be a combination, but it's often at a point in my choosing. If I want you to do something, you will do it.
Okay.
And basically, soul is for very complicated contracts of your soul is forfeit if. To tie you up into making sure you absolutely do. And you do not want to default on one of those deals, because what happens to you when your soul is sucked into Avernus is really grim, and you end up as a really miserable creature.
Slowly can advance through the ranks, but only if you survive, and otherwise. The real interesting one too is how prolific, and I didn't even realize this until recently, how prolific the night hag soul market is.
Yes.
So night hags, they're from Hades, and they have a massive trade situation. So most demons and devils that are looking to purchase souls go to Hades to basically at a grand bazaar buy souls that the night hags collect and offer. And the lore behind it, I think it comes from either 2 or 3E, is so in depth. I watched a whole video, one of Mr. Rex's YouTube videos the other day about it, and it's just like, we all know that night hags are cruel and they can corrupt you and steal your soul, but you never know what they do with it. And apparently it's because there's a massive trade system that goes on, and there's someone just came up with a whole bunch of lore about it. It's really, really cool.
Another great use of souls in Avernus, specifically in the book, is and this is only very minor spoilers for a kind of a mechanic in the game, is there are soul coins.
Yep.
And they are literally coins minted with the soul of somebody in them, and they can be of varying quality, again, depending on whose soul is in them. And they can physically wear you down. That just because
they have myriad effects. Yeah. And they can power via the
that's where I was going.
Right? Yeah, go for it.
You can use them to power the infernal war machines that you can ride across Avernus on, these big Mad Maxian devil machines, motorbikes and wrecking ball carrying cranes. And
you slot a coin in, and then you spray your face with chrome and say, "Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!"
When you slot the coin in, you hear the engine, kick in, and you can also hear the soul within the coin screaming as it is burned up.
It's the fuel source for the car as well. So you hear like, "Ah!"
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I remember the first time they did that. I had downloaded 6 different files of people screaming in torturous ways.
Oh my
I went to dark corners of the internet to find good tortured screams, and then put them through just to immerse them and make them feel bad for every time they were like, "Oh, but I really want to ride this cool war machine car." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, go ahead, slot in the coin. All right, awesome. Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah.
It was almost comical.
Wow. Your players all loved it though. Yeah, they all loved.
Oh yeah. I mean, and I kind of did all the bells and whistles for a very visual experience for it, because in my opinion, like if you're gonna do this, if you're gonna run a Mad Maxian sort of car chase through the desert wastelands of Avernus, you either need to do it pure theater of mind and let everyone just kind of get into it, or you need to do it really well on a VTTA. Like on in person, people will forgive you, but if you're just looking at a static map or an image while you're describing this, or moving tokens around like a regular 2D map, it's not enough. So I had like a scrolling background. I had the tokens that could coordinate with other tokens. So if you dragged the car in one area, it would move all the tokens with it. I then had gnolls on war bikes show up and with harpoons that exploded and dealt extra fire and force damage, as they're driving in, all going as they start, chucking the spears at people and stuff. It was just a lot like a very visual, auditory, all senses firing on all synapses kind of experience.
Yeah.
So sick.
Yeah.
So sick.
A lot of fun.
Well,
I think I still have a video of it somewhere.
Yeah. I think that's all we have time for, guys.
Yeah.
I think it was a good episode. Well, we've got for those of you listening who don't yet know, we've got Rolldark Fest 3 that was announced a couple of weeks ago. That's happening. We're back in Salisbury for that. We've got a very interesting concept for that one. We've got what's called the Tower of Devastating Destiny. It's going to be in the middle of the room. So basically, every time you do a bad roll, you can choose to turn that roll into a good roll. But you have to step forth towards the Tower of Towering Destiny, basically a giant Jenga tower, and remove a block. If you remove a block successfully, your roll turns out to be a positive roll, and everything's fine. But if the tower falls, devastating consequences happen across every single game at Rolldark Fest. So yeah, should be quite fun.
Pressure.
Yeah.
There's going to be some really tense pulls when the tower is obviously wobbling and every table stops and slowly turns to look at the lowly player walking towards it.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Gonna be pretty cool. But yeah, all details about that you'll find in the description below. So great. Welcome to the podcast, Damien. Great to have you on board.
Very much.
And we look forward to more future episodes. And
absolutely.
Thank you to JC. And thanks everyone. And we will catch up with you guys next week.
See you then.
Bye-bye.
Adios. Bye-bye.